Let's talk Alberta. I'm going to share a letter written by a Canadian who has experienced how it was in Alberta during Confederation. I'm using text to script to transcribe the letter as written to audio.
When Alberta along with Saskatchewan joined Canada in 1905, they first asked the USA if they could join them. They were told in no uncertain terms that Alberta and Saskatchewan had nothing the USA wanted, and did not see anything they could contribute to the USA. They then turned to Canada. Both provinces had nothing. They made third world countries look rich. They gave the term poor a whole new meaning. They were also provided with unemployment insurance, eventually workmen's comp, transfer payments for infrastructure, etc. When the Depression hit, banks were forbidden to foreclose on farms, allowing families to continue to live in their homes, and provided with monthly welfare payments. Since the West had been turned into a dust bowl, nothing could be grown to eat or raise any stock on. Even though the Depression hit all of North America, donations of food and clothing were sent out west by train. Newfoundland sent trainloads of fish. It was all they had, but despite their poverty, they sent what they did have. After all, the West were Canadians in need. Then as time went by and Canada recovered from the war and crops were able to grow again, oil was discovered, however expensive to extract. Still, the federal government poured subsidies into oil companies to research and develop the tar sands, as they were called in those days. Then the next thing we hear is, "Let the eastern bastards freeze in the dark." I remember my immediate boss very specifically saying this a number of times while he knew 3 out of his 10 employees were from Ontario and had family there. Pierre Elliott Trudeau wants to nationalize the oil and set up a trust fund for the down times. Alberta freaks out. Norway takes Pet's advice and today has a fund of 17 trillion. Alberta eventually sets up a fund and raids it to the point where 8 billion is left in it despite it being in force approximately 10 years before Norway set theirs up. Pat also wanted to build a refinery in South Alberta, and while putting the first pipeline through to Quebec, wants to put in a second one as eventually he foresaw it would be needed. The Conservatives freak out at his wasteful spending on foolishness. Alberta does not negotiate cleanup costs, reclamation costs, and sticks this to the taxpayer and demands all of Canada pay for this. Now wants Canada to build a second refinery and put in a second pipeline when world oil prices have tanked and do not appear to make a comeback. Well, excuse our attitude, but as an 8th-generation Canadian, and one whose grandparents and family homesteaded in northern Saskatchewan, and whose late husband who was Indigenous from Cold Lake, Alberta, while they watched Eastern Europeans after the war, who were termed displaced persons, given farms to live on complete with a house, barn and animals and equipment to give them a start, sell those very farms to move into the city. Frankly, you know what you can do with your unreasonable, feigned outrage because you can't figure out the ones who have been bleeding you dry and laughing themselves sick, which are the Conservatives with their lies and division, because it keeps the fat cow from realizing who is milking her.
UCP's decisions are going to harm you in ways that will be extremely hard to recover from. It would be prudent of Albertans to be very aware of just how long these right-wing capitalist parties have lied to you about everything regarding Canada. It is now that you should pay really close attention to what the UCP is doing and for who they are doing it for.